There has always been an element of mystery around the failure of the Chinese Super League to be able to do anything of serious note in terms of developing the game or whatever the fuck they're trying to do, right? I mean, there was a time, might be before your time, depends on how old you are. I'm not here to judge. That the Chinese Super League operated in much the same way as the Saudi League. It threw around relatively massive money compared to what the footballing ecosystem had at the time. Huge wages, tried to attract players. Oscar, Gervinho, Hulk, like really big name players at the time. Oscar in particular was the stunner. He was like peak of his powers, just played at the World Cup in the home World Cup for Brazil. And that's just a small list. They went over to Brazil to play in the Chinese Super League. And they got their paychecks, and the Chinese Super League over time became not as much what it was then, right? There was a big splash of investment, just not even just in the Chinese Super League, but in football in general, out of China, right? It became a prerogative of the government, the regime, whatever, right? Like the people in power wanted to make that a priority, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know what I mean? If you look at the whole landscape and you go, well, shit, we're trying to like be good at football now. Great. But I think China's actually taken a pretty damn good step to trying to fix the actual problems that they have, right? Because throwing money at stuff is one thing, but China has actually, I mean, okay, let me just lay this on you. This is the table of the Chinese Super League at the start of next season. Now, you'll notice something a little unusual. Like over half the teams, right, have half the team. No, over half the teams, to check my math on that, over half the teams have points deducted, at least 5 points, right? And I'm loving a couple of the names in here. Shout out to my boys at Wuhan Three Towns, Shandong Taishen, Tianjin, Jinmen Tiger, which is just, I'd say that at home. Very fun to say. Chongqing Tonglianglong. I think I got way closer than that than I expected to on a first attempt, so we'll ride with that. Chengdu Rongqing. I mean, these are banging names. Loving what I'm seeing here from the Chinese Super League. And shout out to these 7 teams that did not apparently get involved in some sort of corruption, skullduggery, or match fixing. Because that's right. We're looking at a table where the majority of the teams have been punished in one way or another for corruption. Now, this is a sweeping crackdown on corruption by the Chinese Federation. Okay, now the reason, in case you ever wondered, I always try and sprinkle this in there, the Chinese owners kind of failed and ended up in a lot of financial issues in England and in Spain and wherever else, is because China kind of restricted the outflow of cash out of the Chinese economy. So that really hampered the Chinese businessmen's ability to actually get the money out to be able to fund those clubs. That's where a lot of that disaster came in. But the disaster on the home front was the money was kind of going to the wrong people, and there was corruption, match fixing, and now they're starting to crack heads together like coconuts. Look, does this mean that the Chinese national team and the Chinese league's all of a sudden going to get really serious and they're going to get really good? First of all, the national team's not bad. If you put, like, they always get put in the same category as the other monster nations that haven't necessarily made it. Indonesia's better than China. Both of those teams are way better than India, Pakistan, right? Like, China made it to the final qualifying round, the final group qualifying round of Asia. So did Indonesia. Just throwing that out there. They're not terrible, right? Their national team is not bad. As with anything, their national team's not actually going to be good until they invest in large-scale grassroots infrastructure and encourage the playing of the game for free with well-trained coaches. That is the secret sauce. That is what you need to spend the money on. But making sure that your league is corruption-free so that talent and, fan culture and emotional investment in the sport can flourish is also an important part of it. And China's taken that step. This is a quote from an independent article here. For 73 industry personnel, including Shen Shuyan and Li Tie, whose criminal offenses have been confirmed by effective judicial judgments, the CFA has imposed lifetime bans on participating in any football-related activities. Now, Li Tie is a very important part of this. This is a guy that played at Everton, which there's not a lot of Chinese players that can say they've played at a Premier League level club. He also coached the national team. All right, this is a former national team coach who last year admitted to here's the thing. They were both convicted of accepting millions of dollars in bribes. Now, Xin Shuan was the former president of the Chinese Football Association. So they're taking down big. That's why I'm saying this is like actually a very big, impressive move. I'm always going to commend football federations for cleaning their act up, because so much of the world of football is dirty money, back alley deals type shit, right? But the people really in power very rarely actually get wrapped up in it. People that are presidents of federations, people that coach the national team, right? It's not something that they usually get roped into. But in this case, we have a group of 73 people that have been banned for life from the game. And in some cases, with both of these guys, criminal charges have been brought against them in like Chinese courts for corruption and for doing so. Like, this is not just, oh, we caught some random gamblers doing match fixing and some coaches and like a few players that were involved in it. These are the real leaders of Chinese football at one time or another that are being brought down. Now, I had to go searching around for an article. I ended up finding it on BBC about Li Tie, who's the guy that was included in this. He was actually arrested in 2024. So this has been developing for a while China tries to clear up its clean up its game. Earlier this week, 3 former officials of the Chinese Football Association were handed jail sentences a while ago. So earlier this week in December of 2024. Lee, who is the national team head coach, pleaded guilty to taking over $16 million in bribes. Now, obviously, if you've got a national team head coach who's being bribed, that's fucking massive, by the way. That's a ton of money. Okay, normally when we're talking about bribes, even in the world of football, we're talking like $50,000, $100,000, fucking $16 million worth of bribes. Dude was a national team coach from January 2020 to December 2021. He wasn't there for that long. He was there for 2 years. 16 million fucking dollars in bribes for a guy that was there for 2 years. That is insane. Right? The court said that this happened from 2015 when he was assistant. Okay, sorry, didn't keep reading. 2015 when he was assistant coach at Hebei Fortune Club until 2021 when he quit as the national coach. In exchange for bribes, Lee would select certain individuals for the national team and help football clubs win competitions. That's fucking crazy. The 47-year-old was featured in an anti-corruption documentary aired by the Chinese state broadcaster earlier this year, where he apologized for his offenses. I'm very sorry. I should have kept my head to the ground and followed the right path. There were certain things at the time that were common practices in football. Now, obviously, that's the classic, well, everybody else was doing it, which honestly, they probably were. But given the fact that 73 people being caught, and banned for life, seems like they got everyone. You can't just be like, oh, I got Bob. Ah, shit. See, Bob got away with it. But I ain't no snitch or something. It also involved in potentially paying off people. Lee was to become the head coach of the national team anyways. That's something that he apparently was in on at some point. Now we have to hear from the Chinese Federation, though. The penalties were intended to uphold industry discipline, purify the football, something really terrifying about the phrase purify the football environment, I don't know, and maintain fair competition. The point deductions and financial penalties imposed on the clubs are based on the amount, nature, and seriousness of social impact of the improper transactions in which each club was involved. This is a continuation of a now zero tolerance policy towards corruption. So all of these clubs that got points deducted also received fines. The fines ranged from £21,000 to over £100,000, which is, 1 million yuan, which is, a nice round number in the local currency. So a good chunk of change. We're talking like $150,000 fine for these clubs. And these are clubs that are operating not quite on the budgets that they had when they were throwing all of that money around. So you expect that to be some sort of actually impactful amount of money that they are being fined. So it's not just the fines, it's the point deductions, and every single one of these clubs, they got at least -5 points in every direction, was judged to have been involved in improper dealings. So some sort of back channel connection, whether it be with Li Tie, whether it be with, any one of these 73 people that ended up being banned for life that was involved in, it was everything. All the different ways you can be corrupt in football, like fake transfers, all, the money changing hands to fix matches, all of it. It's all in this list. And China has actually sat down and tried to knock out all of it. Now, the result of this is that Li Tie is going to be in jail for 20 years. So, I mean, obviously, $16 million. It's a ton of corruption. 20 years, and Shen Shuyan, I've only been to China once, cut me some slack, dog. He got a lifetime prison sentence. So, I mean, they're not fucking around. Like, I never took China to be a place that fucked around when it came to breaking the law, right? But they, I mean, they're tossing these guys in the clink. I mean, we're talking about, this is probably the first time that I have ever been witness to somebody getting a lifetime in prison for something they did within the world of football. Like, you know, even someone like Sepp Blatter. Now, I think people were hoping that he'd just go to jail for a year or two for obvious corruption, right? But lifetime in prison for something maybe it's just a statement thing. Maybe he's some super old guy. He was the former head of the federation, right? That's normally an old dude position. That is a fucking massive prison sentence. Like, I'm trying to pay attention to the rest of the story. That's such a massive prison sentence to get. Dude got life in prison for football corruption. Now, I'll tell you what. Nobody's fixing matches in China anymore. Unless the dudes that are in charge of the sentencing are like, hey, actually, can make a lot of money on a poly market or something. The world is coming to an end.